What makes me Norwegian is hard for me to define. The only one thing that I can think of is the fact that I have a Norwegian passport. And that is the only thing right now that I can say concretely that that is what makes me Norwegian. Because I'm not ethnic Norwegian. Even though I speak Norwegian, I was born in Norway, and I have lived there most of my life. I don't feel Norwegian just because quite often I feel excluded.
I think a Norwegian is somebody who likes to ski. Somebody who has to live where there is a different climate, just not summer all year long. I don't think Norwegians could handle summer all year long. I think Norwegians are kind of closed, introverted, love to drink. Yeah, I think they're kind of proud. You know, it's not one of those big cultures that everybody knows, that everybody talks about, but when you get here, there is pride. Yeah, I think Norwegians are proud.
I think being Norwegian, you find a true friend, I think. Because Norwegians are very they don't talk to you. We're all just, we don't care about others. But when you first get to know Norwegian and you get a Norwegian friend, I think that you realize that, okay, they will never let you down in a way, because you have their trust, and then you have a loyal friend. I think that's how I see Norwegians. They seem cold, but once you get to know them, they're really good people.
Okay, I don't actually feel like I'm exactly Norwegian, but I do feel like being a Norwegian is just to appreciate the culture, even though there's not that much of kind of symbolized culture like in other countries. As I lived in the north of Norway and have my friends, we go, I don't know, swimming in the ocean, we go skiing, I go skiing, and actually helped me a little bit to get more integrated, because by doing things they do helps a lot, and I think that's mostly part of the culture.
Well, I wanted to make this film because through the years people have asked me what it means to be Norwegian, and if I feel Norwegian, or if I am Norwegian. So I wanted to explore the question of what it means to be Norwegian for me and people who are like me, who live in Norway, and people in my family. I had to travel back to Norway to my family who still live there and ask them what it means to be Norwegian and what life is like for them.
How do I feel like being a Norwegian? I mean, I would tell you that I don't feel like being a Norwegian at all, in the sense that I still, on a day-to-day basis, I see how non-Norwegians are being treated, and I feel that, well, of course, I am also in that same class. I could be treated the same way, in a negative way.
How did we end up here?
I think you know, this is also a question that had been asked here in my place of work in Bioforsk here, where there was this curiosity in how I ended up in Norway. Why didn't I end up in Sweden? Why didn't I end up in Britain? Why didn't I end up in the United States? Well, it all happened in somewhere around 1973 when we had a visit from a UNICEF representative at my school who happened to be a Norwegian. I was selected to be the one to take him around, to show him how the state of the building. We sat down and we talked, and of course I expressed my wish to travel abroad and further my education. At the time I was only a qualified teacher, trained in the Gambia and teaching at the junior secondary school. I wanted to study agriculture, at least obtain higher education. And then, you know, one thing led to another. He gave me a couple of addresses of schools that I could write to. I wrote to those, and one of them replied positively. And of course, you know, when the school was able to convince an organization in that village or in that town to sponsor my schooling, then I came here in Norway.
Our upbringing in Norway was a little bit different from my friends' upbringing, my Norwegian friends. I remember I always felt like my dad was very, very strict. But what he did was that he wanted to incorporate the way that he would have raised us if we lived in Gambia in Norway.
Like, I have to tell my dad when I walk out, when I go out, and I always have to ask him before I go. So my friends just tell their moms, like, hey, I'm going out this weekend, so don't expect me to be home before 7. And I'll have to call my dad like every 3 minutes. Be like, you know, I'll be home this time. This person is driving me, and you know. I guess it's kind of different because in the Gambia, people go out and party, but they don't drink and like party as hard as they do here, I guess.
Bringing up your children in Norway, myself and my siblings, what do you feel you accepted of Norwegian culture, and what did you reject of Norwegian culture?
Even though the earlier times, I mean, when my children were growing up in the early 80s and up to the late 80s, early 90s, I mean, I felt that under certain conditions, I was being pushed in a corner, I mean, to try to bring up my children as Norwegians. Of course, not that Norwegian culture is bad culture, but I think one says, "Bort bra men hjemme best." saying that away it's good, but at home it's best. But I would prefer bringing up my children as Gambian as possible. I mean, of course, I'm living in a Norwegian society.
I chose to move away from Norway about 8 years ago when I was in university. The need for me to move was supported by the fact that I needed somewhere where I could fit in and just blend in and just be without having to identify myself. Because growing up, I had to identify myself all the time. I couldn't just be. It was always a question of where are you really from? And for me growing up, only knowing Norway is something that makes you feel excluded. And you really want to say, I'm from Norway, because that's where I was born and that's where I was raised, and I speak Norwegian, I eat Norwegian food, I appreciate Norwegian culture, I recognize Norwegian holidays, but people would ask you constantly, where are you really from? So I wanted to be in a place where I didn't have to identify myself, where I could just be and just let my shoulders down and exhale and just blend in and not be the odd one out. And that's why I moved.
My name is Sarian. I am 29 years old and I currently live in Eastbourne. I think my exclusion or my feeling of being excluded is probably something that I've kind of created for myself, and I think that's because of the fact that I've chosen not to live in Norway for the majority of my life, because I started feeling excluded somehow when I was younger.
Well, to me it's difficult to describe one particular type of Norwegian. If I take myself, for instance, in Norway, I wouldn't necessarily identify myself as a Norwegian. There are definitely, outside of Norway, there are more people like me or people that look like me that I could identify with in a way that would, obviously enhance my sense of belonging or feeling that, yes, this is where I could just blend in and just be. And that experience is one experience I get when going to Trinidad, for instance, because people look like me and people are surprised that I'm not from there, which is the opposite from here in Norway, where everybody could see that I am originally not from here, but all my history, knowledge, education is from here, but I still get treated as this outsider.
Are you Norwegian?
I think a part of me is. I think the part of me that was born and raised in Norway until I was about 11 or 12 is Norwegian. I don't look ethnic Norwegian, and therefore a part of me doesn't want to be or doesn't identify as Norwegian, because I don't feel like ethnic Norwegian people identify me as Norwegian. I think I identify myself as all these different things. I think it becomes more and more difficult the older you get and the more you've traveled and the more you've moved around in the world to kind of say that you're either this or that. Being somewhat multicultural and have lived in different countries, throughout my life, I find it not as easy anymore to say that I'm either African or Norwegian African or African Norwegian, because I've taken aboard all these different things that I've learned everywhere I've lived and added that to my identity.
I think even at an early age that I had already become a global citizen, because when I think of it, we had people from different parts of the world who came to our house on a regular basis, learning to speak Norwegian, Wolof, English, and communicating with these people who came to our house. I think at that time I'd already learned to adapt with different cultures and different people from different parts of the world. I think that helped me from when I was very, very young to be able to blend in with other cultures.
About your ability to adapt, I think that is one of the qualities. I don't know where that came from. I think the very fact that you already at an early age both have been used to mingling with different people from different parts of the world. And having to talk to people, different types of people. Your activities here in Norway, being involved with the African Youth Club, and traveling all the way to South Africa to represent Norway for this African Youth Club, mingling with different cultures, I think was one of the reasons why you were able to adapt in different parts of, in different societies.
In 1994, my family, or my parents, decided that the family was going to move to Gambia, and it was their dream to move back to Gambia after being in Norway temporarily.
I traveled with you and your sister back to the Gambia, and then I had to put you into schools. I mean, all during this time, of course, you were a lucky bunch in the sense that English was not foreign to you. We spoke English at home here in Norway. We had Tanzanians, Kenyans, and people from East Africa and West Africa, all who came to visit us as often as possible. And they spoke to you, and you responded, and in that way, I mean, you learned, to speak both Norwegian, English, and Wolof.
The fact that I did not see people that looked like me on TV, or I didn't see billboards that had black people talking about black hair, or that the only thing I knew was kind of what I saw from American TV and media or British media that would represent somebody that looked like me.
I think there was a lack of representation growing up in the media of people who looked like me. So I was lucky to have parents who were role models. I think being me has given me the opportunity to do a lot of fun stuff. When I was 9 years old, that was the first time I was invited to a television show in Norway. And I went on there to talk about Christmas in Gambia. And when I was about 12, we got to meet the King of Norway. My whole family got to meet the King of Norway and the Prime Minister. So being me has given me a lot of opportunities to do a lot of fun stuff. And for that, I'm thankful. And how do you identify yourself?
Jamaican.
Jamaican.
100%.
Will you ever be Norwegian?
No, never.
That's a very hard question. I think being like mixed from Zambia, we were never seen as Zambians, and we were never seen as Indians. And then when you come to Norway, you're kind of you're just African, because you're black. I think you become kind of Norwegian, but for me, it doesn't mean anything.
I do identify myself as an African, because I'm not Norwegian yet. I've been here for the past 6.5 years. But I do have a lot of Norwegian friends that consider me as Norwegian. And I have a lot of even people from my country that do consider me more Norwegian than anybody else.